Hey, welcome in. I think our stream should be starting. I'm going to double check that in a few places just to make sure we are indeed live on the LinkedIn event that we shared out. And normally it gives me a notification on LinkedIn that I'm live. Going into my events. Click to join. Hey, we're live. I want to make sure I turn the audio off though, so we don't replicate that there. Awesome. Well, welcome in, folks. We're live in here, and just want to say hi and welcome folks in and give folks a minute to jump in and join. Please feel free to say hi in the chat. We are streaming across a couple of locations, and but we will. I will keep an eye on the questions in the chat, and they do also actually pop into, interestingly, in jump in and join. Please feel free to say hi in the chat. We are streaming across. And I was muting myself on a different platform where we're also streaming. All right, so welcome in, folks. I'm really excited to be chatting about SEO with my good digital remote virtual friend, Catherine. We're both pretty sure we are both real, but in the age of AI, it is more questionable, but we did start talking pre-AI. And so that does give me a better sense that you're a real person. I think about SEO all the time, and obviously you do, because you are an expert, a true expert in SEO, with an extra layer on there of a true expert in SEO for the nonprofit space, which is different. And like, I know SEO is super critical. I generally have strategic thoughts about it. And it really hit me though just recently, and this feels crazy that like this aha just hit me, that Neil Patel referred to SEO. And those of you who don't know Neil Patel, he's like, I maybe the preeminent person in SEO. He owns several SEO companies, and some of them are tools folks might even be using. He referred to SEO as a marketing channel. And I had never thought about it as a marketing channel before that moment. And I was like,
really?
Yeah.
Huh.
To me, it was this thing I should do because I will get some low-hanging fruit. And with that, Catherine, do you want to introduce yourself a little more formally, and then we'll jump into some of your thoughts on SEO and how folks should be thinking about it? Because clearly, I feel like I, as someone who has thinks somewhat strategically about SEO, was still pretty far behind the curve. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about who you are and kind of what you're up to, and we'll keep chatting.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Catherine Wattier-Ong. I'm the owner of WO Strategies. We focus on making sure high quality science can be found in Google. So most of my clients, the majority, are big academic journals, and I work with an academic platform now. So still in the nonprofit space, but millions of pages and great research that should be found online, but is not magically, turns out. I've been doing SEO for 20 years, which makes me, I wouldn't say expert, but senior SEO. I don't know what kind of label I would have. I've started a veteran SEO maybe. And I got my start in '94 when I built my first website. And I started nonprofit when I was 16, ironically, which I ended up putting on the internet. And that's what kind of led me to be working in nonprofits when I moved to DC post-college. So I started off at National 4-H Council working on websites. I was definitely doing web-related stuff. But I didn't find SEO until I was at the Points of Light Foundation. So I was the head of marketing and sales for 1-800-volunteer.org, which is no longer in existence. But part of my goal was to make sure that volunteers could find volunteer opportunities online. So that's basically when I got my start in SEO, and I've been working predominantly with nonprofits since.
Awesome. I also didn't know about 1-800-Volunteer. That is super cool.
Yeah.
And totally makes sense pre-internet. And do you know how long they overlapped? Sorry, I get so wonky on these things. Like, I wonder how long the 800 number overlapped the internet. I'm guessing at least a decade.
I actually don't know how long they had the phone number. But yeah, that is why you could call it, and then you could also, go online and find an opportunity that way. But I kind of joke because my sales role was actually underneath 1-800-volunteer.org was a volunteer management service. So I was actually selling software. And so I would go to these volunteer centers and sell the software. But then the kicker is that for them to be found online, most times the volunteer centers weren't the ones posting the opportunities. It was like the local food pantry and the local shelter. So the volunteer center, interestingly, had to be good at describing SEO so that the local food pantry and shelter would put together an optimized listing that somebody would actually find. And a lot of the ladies who ran these volunteer centers were right at retirement age, or maybe they'd come back from retirement. So I always joke that I got my start training SEOs by training grandmothers, because that actually was the demographic on how to do SEO. Yeah. But we became the market leader in 3 years. And I had, one of our competitors tried to steal me. And we ended up supporting all of the states that got hit by Hurricane Katrina. And we introduced all this emergency response volunteer management into the system, and then rolled out statewide volunteer management options for like the state of Washington State, and I want to say Louisiana bought one, and state of Florida eventually. So I spoke at the Florida Hurricane Conference because we had stuff to help people manage volunteers that come in post-disaster, which are always helpful, but also they get in the way because people don't realize that you need to have a plan. You can't just show up at a disaster, right? So the software was supposed to let people register like, I'm a carpenter, great, we need you, but wait until we're ready and have water and a place for you to stay, for you to like come into Florida to help rebuild, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, that was my start.
SEO keeps changing, right? All of the keeps changing, right? I would just love, my honest read on it is like 95% of organizations are sleeping on SEO. Like at best, they're maybe putting in the title of the page.
Right.
And that seems to be about it. Like, kind of, and maybe we'll just jump into this part, like, how do you explain why SEO is so critical to organizations? And essentially this like marketing channel aspect of it.
I've worked with 3 federal websites as well. And so when I explain it to the feds, I always say, you spend all this work creating a beautiful brochure, but you're putting it in a cold, dark hallway. Because a lot of these pages don't get found. And you don't want to spend the budget and put all the money into the asset if you're not going to be promoting it. Turns out on the internet, 2/3 of the effort is promotion, not so much creating the thing in the first place. And SEO is that way too. So depending on how big your website is, you might need to be doing promotion of it. Only the very largest websites can sort of publish and not promote, and pretty much all of them still do some mini promotion. But yeah, so most of nonprofits, the ones that I've worked with, the big ones, their biggest wins are actually technical. So there's a bunch of levels to SEO. The table stakes is making sure Google and its spiders and bots can come and actually find your information and put it in their database. Because if you're not in the database, you're not going to rank. That's step 1. And all of that's actually technical SEO, which we now have a training about. I've trained a bunch of people who work on these big academic journals on how to stay on top of the technical SEO, because they're usually on platforms that roll out updates every month, and you just want to make sure none of that breaks anything and people could still find your stuff. I had one journal early on that had a crawl trap. So talking about the technical stuff, they had something where the spider was adding extra fake folders. That's all the spider was doing. So the spider wasn't finding anything else. And all we did was fix that one thing, and they had 30,000 more keywords ranking within a month. Right.
The spider is on the search engine side.
No, the spider comes into the website. The functionality was actually part of the internal search. And they also didn't have a 404 that was getting triggered with these fake URLs. It's on my website, actually. If you're curious about relative links and what kind of chaos might happen, feel free to check out the blog post. But in this instance, they had relative internal links, and then they had a non-404 page triggering. And so the bot was coming in and creating extra fake folders. You can see it in the crawl in their Google Search Console. You can see all these extra fake folders. I mean, like dozens of the same folder. You're like, what is that? That's a hot mess. That is not normal. And so we just fixed that one thing, and Google was able to find the rest of their website and started ranking all sorts of stuff.
That's crazy. So just
so sometimes the technical on big websites really matter.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. I wish I would have read that article. And I will now, actually, and I will share it. And someone asked, there's a question here, and I think let's take it up. It is the pressing question of the moment. How important is SEO in the age of AI?
So the trick is with SEO and all of the updates, and you're right, it changes 9 times a day, the algorithm. So there's a ton of updates. But all it's been doing, Google and search in general, is adding extra stuff on top. So the stuff that I trained on about 10 years ago is still table stakes. You have to do that plus. It's always plus. Most stuff has not been taken off the to-do list, unfortunately. So you still have to do technical, you have to label stuff. You have to make sure that your content is written for what people are looking for. You have to actually now look at Google because it's all personalized to the end user, and actually look to see the thing I'm writing on. Is that what people are searching for? Do they want me? Like, for instance, the feds again, because this was funny. When I worked with fisheries at NOAA, they shipped me a list of acronyms, and they're like, "Hey, which one of these should we optimize for?" And one of them was ACL. I was like, "Okay, Google is not showing your fish committee for ACL."
Yeah.
They're showing knee stuff, of course. So we're going to take that off your list. Don't optimize for that. Anyway, so all this blocking and tackling is still relevant. Now, when it comes to the AI overviews, they pull from the first 10-ish results. And if it's the AI mode, which is about to roll out, it looks like they're pulling from the first top 20. So page 1 and page 2. So you still have to rank well to even be a reference. And then the other bummer about the AI overviews, Google is just making our SEO jobs hard. Everyone's losing clicks, especially if you're an information-based business, which my clients are. It's a full answer. There's this really great, we could share it after this, but there's this really great user study, and SEO got some funds to do this. It was great. They did user testing basically, but starting with search. And it looks like everybody just scans the answer real quick and does not click through on any of the little clicks in the AI overview. And they don't even scroll much. It's like they get a quick fact sheet and then they move on, which is what we've been seeing.
I'm going to pop the question up to read it even better. How important is schema?
Schema. Yeah.
Schema. You know what? I pronounce it right half the time, and the other time I get, because I have ADHD, I'm always freaked out. Am I pronouncing this thing right? And then I pronounce it wrong half the time.
Yeah, this is a controversial topic.
In the age of AI.
Yeah, the SEOs have been talking back and forth about it. So this is kind of nuanced, but LLMs can't read schema. LLMs, their bots, don't crawl JavaScript. So big takeaway, if your website's all in JavaScript, you're going to have a problem being found in LLMs. But Google is still the hugest traffic source. ChatGPT is like tiny, and Google's like way up here. So yeah, pay attention to ChatGPT, but Google is still where you should be focusing. It turns out Bing talks about schema, but that's also because, interestingly, Bing, before they put the pages in their index, they add extra stuff to it. So if your page does not have well-structured headers, they'll actually add that before they stick your page in the index. So of course they like more structured things because that's how their index was created.
And do you mind just giving people the
what is schema? Yeah. So schema's been around for at least 10 years, maybe 15 at this point. All the search engines got together and decided, wouldn't it be great if we knew exactly what the nouns were on the page and how they interact with each other? So you can label people, places, and things with schema and also give them attributes. So on my page, say I'm an author of a book, I can put that I'm an author. I can connect me to the book. I can put that I went to school at Georgetown, which is true. I can put that I'm an owner of WO Strategies, which is another entity. So part of it is that labeling, but also you could connect your web page to the larger knowledge graph. Google has been building a knowledge graph ever since Ray Kurzweil's been over there, because his dream is that we can offload our brain to the cloud. He's a crazy inventor. That's been his dream from the beginning. Anyway, so at Google, he's been building this human brain-like thing. It's called the knowledge graph. It's used in search. It has been used for a while. And what I always tell people to do is make sure that you've seen probably knowledge panels in search where it's like a description about you, maybe has your social handles. You should claim that. Then you can actually edit it. And then you could link that to your web page with schema markup. So schema is wonderful. It can give you like enhanced stuff in search. So like reviews, when you see the stars, that's coming from schema code on your website. So that's where getting increased click-through, because you got a sexier snippet in search. But if you come back to the LLMs, they can't read it. So the way it might impact them is when they connect. It's called retrieval augmented generation. When they connect to a database, it could be any database, but in ChatGPT's instance, they're connecting to the Bing search database. And in Gemini, they're connecting to the Google search database. And that's where schema could be potentially helpful. But LLMs on their own without search, schema's not involved at all.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
No. And they can't directly, if they come, they all have bots. And if they come to your website, they can't see it. Most of the time, schema markup, or a lot of the time, it's deployed with JSON LD, which is JavaScript, which they can't read.
Yeah. And so, the like yes and nuance of all of these things is right. Like you said, not that many people are using chat AI, right? Those of us who are like in this world doing this work, who would be watching this content, we're probably using generative AI in some way, and the vast majority is not. And I have to imagine, like, it's probably, I mean, all of the SEO stuff still in some way undergirds it, in that, like, to me, one of the things I think about with SEO in the big strategic thing is like aligning your content to answer the question real audiences might be looking for.
Correct. Search
And
intent. Yep.
and that doesn't go away, right? Like the LLM, they're still asking a question, right? And so they're still looking for the content, right? And so if you're not thinking about the audience in that way, then, I mean, not that it's moot, but it's like the core, to me, the core structure of SEO strategy is in general just good online content strategy, right?
Yeah, I mean, let me give an example. When I was at Environmental Working Group, you probably remember the report about cell phones causing brain radiation and brain cancer. That was the report I knew was coming. And I got them to slow it down so we could create a 360 digital strategy, which included SEO. So we had a database. It had all the phones listed. And what I did was have it dynamically pull into the meta description. So it became part of the snippet. Your Samsung S2 is a high radiation phone based on the EWG cell phone report, right? So we optimized the pages. We also had obviously a media center and stuff, but then we did embargoes, which actually kicked off what's called a snowball effect that can happen with news in Google. So when Google notices something is trending, it will start throwing more of that content. It'll rank you faster, basically. So what we did is, because we had embargoes in different industries and they all lifted at the same time, suddenly our report became top ranking within hours, which never happens because Google doesn't want the answer to not be there if it's clear everybody's looking for it. Now, in that instance, unfortunately, our servers weren't stable. And so we lost the website for 4 days. But we still got 1.2 million visitors, up from 300,000 in the first month. And we put thousands of people on our donor list. So, I mean, it was successful. Could I go back, I would work harder on getting them into a better server situation. And they had an outdated Drupal install, and that caused some of the problems too. But leveraging that kind of stuff could drive a ton of traffic to your nonprofit. You know?
Yeah, I mean, to me, SEO in general seems like the lowest hanging possible fruit. That like organizations are throwing a ton of time half-ass managing social media profiles, and you should be full-ass managing them. To be clear, this is not me dissing on social media. It's more about like how folks are approaching it. But there are people literally looking for something your organization does, issues it cares about, or literally your organization. And without the SEO side of it, like, we're not entering the conversation via this marketing channel, which most people, including myself up to recently, didn't really think about as a marketing channel. And I'm like, wow, like we are in an era where list acquisition has gotten more expensive, paid media, like digital advertising, is getting more expensive. It almost to me feels like a good time to turn back to one of these fundamentals, and like really reinvest in thinking about SEO as this like critical space. And so, when you're thinking about this, or you're talking to organizations about the potential of this low hanging fruit, like, how do you explain that to them or help them understand it?
Well, I just think as marketers, if you're going to be putting your content onto a platform, you should know how the platform works. That's what search engine optimization, they all have search. In fact, Facebook has a search, YouTube has a search, Google is obviously search. But I mean, it's more than just Google search. And for all my clients, I predominantly focus on Google and then YouTube, because YouTube is the second largest search engine,
Yeah.
and 96% of the videos showing up in Google search are YouTube. So if you were brand new to me and you weren't doing anything else, I would be like, all right, let's start with your website and then let's do YouTube very clearly. Also, YouTube videos can get surfaced in a bunch of different ways, versus a lot of the other social platforms where we know organic reach is like whatever 0.4%. I don't know what the real number is, but it's super small unless you're putting paid behind it. So it's one of the last places that you could actually appear and get traffic without paying for it.
Yeah.
Right, with just sheer smarts and effort. Like I recruited 14 unpaid interns at EWG to help me execute on this plan. So I mean, literally ingenuity, like train the kids, get them to do the various things, coordinate the effort, kick it all off at the same time. That's how you win the internet.
Yeah. Yeah. I do appreciate you mentioning YouTube and like YouTube search. And I know we're not covering, we're not going to go deep into that today, but Neil also shared this thing, and maybe it sounds like this is how you already think about it, is the search everywhere optimization.
Yeah.
That like people are searching all over the internet. And as you said, like the YouTube strategy kills me, because it's been the number 2 search engine for like
For
a
a long
decade.
time.
Over a decade, actually, right?
Yeah.
Over a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And again, really low hanging fruit there, right? Like people are literally asking questions, and you probably have the answers, right? And they don't have to be super, like, man, video editing has gotten easier than ever, right?
Oh,
And
especially with
it's
AI. Oh my
yeah,
Lord. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I really think that most nonprofits should spin up. If you don't know what SparkToro is, you should go spin up a SparkToro account, unless you're targeting not US, UK, and Canada, which, because I have a client that's actually targeting Latin America, they don't have that data, unfortunately. But you go to SparkToro, you can put your website in, and it will actually tell you the demographics of your target audience. It will tell you whether they're over-indexing using ChatGPT, interestingly. They'll tell you what social platforms they hang out on. Like, so when I was at Ketchum, they hired me to build out the online marketing and analytics team there. When I started, they were giving every client the same social profiles. And I was like, why? like I got back in the day Twitter, because reporters were hanging out on Twitter. Okay, I get that one. But like everybody has a different set of social depending on your target audience. It's not always the same. All of my clients are different. Some people over-index high on Reddit. Some it's really high on LinkedIn. It kind of just depends on where your audience is. What's interesting, and there's a new story, actually you'll see it on SparkToro because it's on their blog, talking about how people's search behavior has changed, and how most of the time when they go to search, they already have in mind a brand that they're looking for. And they actually do all of the analysis of figuring out which brand I might want for my problem elsewhere. So it's super important that you know that your audience is over on Reddit hashing it out and trying to figure out how to solve their problem. So you could be over there in that conversation, and then they know your brand, and then they go to Google to search for you, right? So that's the big pivot this year. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do SEO. You definitely should. But being a multi-channel marketer and understanding the power and how social works, and leveraging social in search, especially since right now we have a lot of social appearing in search. So there was this hidden gems update like last fall, might have been earlier than that, where they're putting in Reddit and Quora and all sorts of social profiles in search. So they are fully overlapped right now. And I don't think they're going to be undone. I think this is our future, is having those two things together. In fact, Google just showed a test of them doing a Google Discussions feature. I really hope it doesn't go live, but it was people talking on Google, like a social function where you could chat with each other directly on Google. So it's definitely a priority for the company.
Yeah. I'm going to share. I'd love to pivot a little bit and just chat about the courses you've got coming up, or that are live right now.
Yeah.
I'm super excited because you and I have been talking about SEO for a while, and getting courses like these live that are self-paced, that folks can kind of take when they're ready to dig in on things like this. I would love just to get, because now we have 3 live courses,
Yeah.
a little bit of a, like a walkthrough and an understanding of what folks should expect in these. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I might know how to train people on SEO, because I've now put, I don't know, 20 people now work in the digital marketing field who got a chance to get trained by me. So it's the same format that I've used with clients and with my teams. And so the first one is really looking at just an overview about SEO. This is honestly something sometimes I have the C-suite attend. The end goal of the presentation is for you to know how sophisticated search is. You actually have a foundation of how the different parts go together. So it'll make sense when you get deeper later. But the goal is for you to know that it's sophisticated. There is a process to being successful at SEO, and it's constantly changing. And resources about how to stay up to date with the changes. And so this is the table stakes one to take. If you take the other classes without the overview, it might not make sense. I've never trained people that way. I put everybody through the overview and then we dig into deeper detail. So the second set of classes, there are actually two that go together, and it's all about writing content for ranking online. And I break them apart on purpose because it's a lot to cover. It's all new information too for everybody. The first part talks about how to pick terms using tools that SEOs are using. So we call them keywords, and how to know whether or not a keyword is something you can rank for, whether or not the intent that Google is showing is matching the stuff that you are putting on the internet, right? So don't
Yeah,
do the ASL fish thing, right?
yeah, and so the first one is really a good this is SEO, and it could be good for anyone anyone
Yeah,
doing.
anyone.
I mean, you could be an executive director and take this and be like, I now understand what they're talking about. Or you could be a marketer, you could be doing fundraising. It will just help you understand also the request, right? Like if you're not the person who's directly doing SEO or should be doing SEO in your org, how do you kind of address that? And this the first part of this is really like you're starting to do the work, and the keyword sort of stuff and understanding this part is anyone even looking for what you're trying to share, or at least in the way you're trying to share it, right? Is that kind of a good way to think
Yeah,
about that?
so the first one when I do this for clients, I literally tell them they can invite everybody. Anybody who's interested, anybody who needs an overview of what SEO is doing this year in 2025 should take this training. And then the second training is the content piece. So there's a piece of keyword research, organizing, brainstorming the terms, narrowing the list, organizing all of it. At the end of the training, you're going to come up with a content brief, which is an outline of what you need to write that will rank well in Google search. And I've updated all of this with about to use AI prompting and custom GPTs and such, because that's what folks in the industry are doing. To be honest, instead of buying expensive software, which I used to have to put those comparisons together for the feds, like your option is this software at $500 a month or this other one. A lot of it's in ChatGPT now for a pro account. It's way cheaper. So I've retrofitted all of it so that you've got prompts for everything. So the first part is all the way up to a plan. You come up with a plan. The second part is using that plan. How do you write the different bits and pieces that can rank in search? So both an HTML page, how do you optimize an image? How do you write a good meta title and meta description? What are featured snippets? How do you write for those? What are people also ask? How do you optimize that? What are the pieces you optimize in a YouTube video? How do you optimize a PDF? All of that is part of the second training. So by the end of those two stuck together, you should actually know how to go from research straight through publishing something that should rank well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then you've got the big kahuna.
The big technical SEO one. So if you're on a larger website, usually smaller websites don't have this trouble. But if you're on something that's 500,000, maybe 300,000 pages or so and upwards, that's where technical is going to be really key. And so this training is longer because there's a lot of stuff to cover, but it goes through everything about how Google looks at your website and what can impact from a technical perspective. There are some content pieces in here too, because Google has pivoted and now your content quality impacts whether or not they put you in the database, in the index. So I do sort of cover some of that stuff. Also, that's where there's penalties. So Google has a variety of penalties if you do stuff that looks spammy. All of my clients do this inadvertently. None that I've met so far do this on purpose, but I have run into penalties with my various clients. And so I go through all of them here. So that way, if you were to do an audit of your own organizational website, you could be like, okay, that's actually nefarious accidentally. We should fix that. That's urgent. Like, for instance, I started off with a new client and their developers got this was literally last year, 2024. I found hidden links. Who is doing hidden stuff in 2024? That is definitely spammy. But I found the same hidden links on every single website. And this was a website that I knew was penalized. They were having
Oh,
trouble. So like I was already geared toward looking for it. But I had another client where they had some hacking going on, and they sort of had like a negative SEO attack going on. So
wow.
anyway, I cover some of that in this technical SEO training.
Yeah.
Um,
And if you're the organization's person doing SEO, this um you don't have to be working on a really big website for this to be helpful. This helps you understand the technical layer, but it's like if you're working on a big website, you absolutely should know this. Is that kind of the right framework there?
yeah, I mean, also like if you have an outsourced dev resource, I will tell you, 20 years of doing SEO, I've met 3 developers that knew SEO, and one of which is my brother. So there's just not many developers that know SEO because I just told you it changes 9 times a day. How could they stay up to date with their
Yeah.
development stuff if they were also staying up to date with SEO? But they're really good at confidently telling you Google's rules. And I will tell you sometimes it's way off. So if you are the one interacting with the developers and you feel like you're getting a little like, pushback and you're just not sure if that's really Google's guidelines, like this is the training for you. After this, you'll have really good SEO radar of like, oh, the dev wants to do this. I wonder if that would cause this problem. And you'll know where to research it on Google. Because today in 2025, Google actually has all this development resources. They have all these guidelines printed on the internet. So you can actually go find a reference and send the reference to your developer. And when I started, was not the case. We kind of knew because of best practices and a lot of experience, but not because Google wrote it in black and white. And now Google writes this stuff in black and white. But this training will give you the shortcut. So you'll be like, all right, okay. So if they're going to ask me about doing this weird thing, I can go research it on my own and tell them, oh, based on Google's guidelines, that might be bad. Let's not do that. Let's do it this way instead.
Yeah, it's funny. It reminds me a little bit of I always tell people like your graphic designer is not your copy editor.
Yeah.
And your the person unless you know for sure they've done recent SEO training, they're not your SEO person. And I guess the one outlier there is almost every designer will be like, I am not your copy editor. Whereas I forgot, some developers will be, oh yeah, it's fine, I know SEO.
Yeah,
Right.
right. That's the problem. And I
Yeah.
mean, my first year at Ketchum, I touched 65 clients. I was there for 5 years. I have gotten access to probably 400 different organization accounts. I mean, I've touched a lot of clients at this point, and they all have different developers, and I've met 3. And that
Yeah.
includes Mike King, who runs runs an SEO firm in New York. So Mike King, my brother, and this guy who worked on the Seattle Times in Washington State. I know 3 of them that know SEO.
Yeah. So folks, get your SEO going. Is kind of one of the takeaways here. I'm just really excited that you're offering up these resources and offering access to your brain from folks. And it's funny, it's classic. I was still sharing my share screen of me closing out the social channels on the side there. So yeah, really excited to have this all in here. Any closing tips or thoughts you want to share for folks about SEO before we wrap up?
I mean, it's really an interesting time to be alive this year. So, last year, okay, so you all know the DOJ is trying to break apart Google, right? So,
Yeah.
because of that, we've gotten all this insight about Google ranking. So, that was like
Mm,
an SEO's Christmas. So, I can definitively say a variety of things that we sort of guessed at before. And then on top of it, weirdly, somebody at Google uploaded pieces of their algorithm to a GitHub that was public. So we have all that information too. So anyway, all that is packed into this training. So you
mm,
can more definitively say, based on the algorithm leak here. Now, mind you, Google changes a lot, but some of this stuff, the stuff I'm training you on, is the stuff that's been stable for at
yeah.
least a decade. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, I'm not really. I touch on schema the tiniest bit, but schema is like the frosting on top of the cake. I mean, it's
Yeah.
literally the last thing you do. But all the other stuff has been literally the same. So old school for like old school HTML markup where you stack the header 1 and the header 2 and the header 3 just like a Word document, right? That stuff is just like candy to Google. And
Yeah.
interestingly, it's the reason why Google can find snippets of paragraphs and pull them up into the AI overview.
Mm.
So stuff we were doing in 94 is still sexy. It's
Yeah.
still being used. But yeah, I promise you that the one thing I can promise you is people have been through this format of the training for years with me, and now they're doing SEO as their job.
Yeah.
So you should understand what I'm covering. I've got a lot of experience trying to explain it in a non-technical way.
Yeah. And I think I tried to allude to this earlier, and maybe I didn't. Is like my assumption is, while all large language models are different, that's what is the underlayer of the generative AI. One of my assumptions is that like Google's is also stacked on top of Google, right? So like,
Yes, that's the RAG, right? So it has its own LLM, but then when it has a search turned on or search by default, then it will go out to the internet and use its index in relation to the answer. Yeah.
yeah. So the SEO is baked into.
Well, interestingly, the other part is making sure your brand is next to the topic that you're a expert in on
Mm,
various parts of the internet where the LLM grabbed its training data from. So
uh,
it's actually kind of like link building
yeah, yeah.
and online promotion. That piece is critical for the LLM discovery.
Even more critical.
Even more,
Um,
yeah, more than we were doing before. It was
yeah.
always a part like when I work with clients to improve their knowledge graph presence, for instance, that's what we do. We're like, hey, over here in Wikipedia, you're a little weak, and Wikidata, you don't mention your journal article and whatever. But it's like that on steroids is the key to appearing in LLMs.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much. A question here we can follow up separate on. Well, thank you so much for jumping in, and just appreciate you sharing your knowledge and packaging up your knowledge to make it even more accessible for folks
Yeah.
via the courses that are going live. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for chit chatting with me.